Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well. It's Lane here with MetaShackle. I found a pretty interesting pattern here on the HBAR charts. As we know, HBAR has been on an absolute tear since it was down to about the 0.048 level. And I actually bought quite a bit down in this level just to add to my long-term cold storage position. And it has been on a really, just an amazing tear. And it's formed this nice pennant here, this nice wedge. It's pretty equilateral as well too, so it's fairly centered. But it looks like we've formed a nice cup right here. And you can see up here at this top of this range, the previous high was right here. And we are now sweeping the highs. Basically, looks like a liquidity sweep going on here, so it's basically swept these highs right here and taken out some of the liquidity. A lot of the times when these do sweep, these lines here that I've got on here, this is kind of a closely guarded secret of mine. It's an indicator of sorts that I've developed myself, and the numbers involved are, I'm very quiet about them, so I keep it to myself, and it works very, very well. So even if you take this up to the top, generally this white bar here on my indicator tells us the buy range. So we've come up past the previous top and swept a little bit of the liquidity here. Sometimes you'll see this come up and it'll sweep the liquidity up here into this higher range before it pulls back. But with a lot of cups and handles, you know, they're fairly even to each other if it's going to be a cup and handle. You know, if this thing blows out of here and just keeps rallying, odds are it's going to come up to these red bars right here, which is the point of no return is what I call it. If it comes up here, then this cup and handle pattern will likely be broken, kind of similar to this one, to where it was forming what could have been a cup and handle style pattern, but it ended up blowing out completely on this right side, kind of blowing the pattern. You can still trade these pretty effectively at an angle, but it's just not the typical cup and handle pattern that we're accustomed to. And cup and handle patterns are basically, I would say it's my top formation that I look for. I really like these rounded bottom formations. They do really well for me when I trade. You know, a lot of these, it's gives you a really easy range because it sets this higher point, so you know that there's a range here that's going to be swept with liquidity sweeps. And if it's on a trend line that you can see coming, it basically, you know, as it pulls back, a lot of times you know that you can set a buy order somewhere in this range just off of this line, expecting these liquidity sweeps. And if it doesn't hit, you can also set up a multi-tier buy down in this range. So if it comes up, doesn't do this large sweep, and falls back here, it'll initiate your short. So either way, you initiate your short from this level or this level, and then you can write it down to whatever your Fibonacci levels are down here. A lot of times, you know, these cups and handles don't play out like they do on the standard trading models that you use, to where most people are looking for like a mid-level cup and handle formation. So this actually fell back quite a bit right here. I didn't actually trade this, but that would have been a hell of a gain right there for anybody that shorted anywhere in this range. But it looks like we might be forming ourselves a nice cup and handle here, and if that's the case, we're probably right in the range or really close to the top of that cup, which would actually establish this rim line right here. So if that's the case, according to the indicators that I use, this could pull back. I mean, we're heading into the weekend, and generally I don't like to trade the weekends because there's very, very low volume, and it's easy for big money to come in there and just swing it around and manipulate it and just pick all your stops out left and right. So for the most part, I really don't like to enter a trade, but I will hold a trade over the weekend if I'm in a winning position. You know, I'm up on the trade and I want to kind of let it ride, but I always make sure to set a stop loss of 5% under those circumstances. So that's kind of what I'm expecting right here. I've initiated a short position right in this area, and it should be triggering here shortly, but I still haven't gotten the alert, and I don't have my trading platform open yet. So if this does create the rim line right here with this last liquidity sweep, it's probably fairly likely that we'll end up seeing something like this, which could essentially create that handle, and then this whole area right here would be a nice cup and handle, because the market's turning out to be really bullish. It's looking really bullish. I'm pretty reluctant to go short in the market in any capacity right now, other than the fact that this is forming a nice cup and handle pattern. It's trading in a wedge. It popped out above the upper trend line right in this range, which means they're gathering up liquidity. So they're taking all that sell side liquidity out. Now they're most likely going to come down this way, come down between these lows, and they're going to take out all this buy side liquidity right here and here. And then eventually this is going to bounce and come back out. So this is actually a good pattern to see, because it's not only in a wedge, but it's a cup and handle pattern as well. So I haven't really looked at the levels yet, but overall, I mean, if you really look at this pattern, if this plays out on this pattern, even just throwing in the order blocks will kind of tell you about where the money's sitting. So there's probably a pretty good chance that if we do start to drop and form a handle on this cup and handle pattern, I mean, we could definitely take out these two order blocks, but odds are what would end up happening is once we break out of this rim line right here, it would be seeking liquidity here, here, and here. So we could see a pretty big move coming out of this, and even if this cup and handle doesn't form, we could still see something spectacular. And get rid of all these lines because it's getting jumbled. So we could still see something fairly spectacular, even if that cup and handle pattern doesn't form. I mean, these charts look really good. I mean, checking this level here, checking this level here. It's not a very straight line. This level here. I mean, if this breaks out of here, I mean, we could really come up and start to play some games here, and maybe even eventually form a larger cup and handle pattern up somewhere in this range in the future. And that would be awesome, because we're definitely getting more and more bullish. I mean, we've suffered through some pretty serious lulls. It's been a long, hard path for people that are holding long term. You can see, I mean, how just horribly bearish the markets have been for a long time. So I'm kind of expecting in this area right here now is we're going to end up seeing something similar to this. But these cup and handle patterns, I really like to play these patterns. They work out well for me. Generally, when I play cup and handle patterns, I'm probably successful about 80% of the time, which is great. You know, if you got a 30% edge on the market, that's great. So that's just what I wanted to share with you. I really think that we're going to form a cup and handle pattern right here. So I'm kind of expecting to see, like I said, something like this, and then one of these. So I'm planning on shorting this down. Not a very big trade, maybe 1,000. Shorting this down somewhere probably to this first Fibonacci level. This isn't quite set up for it, but I'm going to have to refine it a little bit. Probably somewhere in that range. And then once I think I've bottomed and I've got a confirmation, I'm going to put on a long position, see if I can ride that puppy out of there. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I appreciate you watching. Have a good day.